Yes.
All right, so we'll call to order the meeting of December 19th, 2016. I'd like the motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And I'll
Second.
second.
Call roll.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Mr. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. DiBiagio?
Aye.
Mr. Lewis?
Aye. All right, second thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of November 28th, 2016. And a motion, or if anyone has any changes?
No change.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Mr. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. DiBiagio?
Aye.
And Mr. Lewis?
Aye. Great. And number 3, it's the public hearing of case 1-2016 LUP to review the draft of the 2016 update to the Anderson Township Comprehensive Plan. We'll start with the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Again, as was stated, this is an update to our 2011 comprehensive plan. This is the 5-year update, and the comprehensive plan is a 20-year horizon. It was originally adopted in 2005. The 5-year update, which took 6 years actually, was in 2011, and this is the second 5-year update for 2016. The applicant is the Board of Township Trustees. A little bit about the history and the planning efforts that are incorporated into this plan update is listed on the slide and is also listed in your staff report. But there are numerous plans, and they're listed by last date of approval. So the Anderson Township Design Guidelines are the most recent, down to our many plans for Beachmont Avenue, which include our Beachmont Avenue Landscape Plan, our Vision Plan, our Corridor Plan, and most recently with the Beachmont areas, our Downtown Anderson Plan, which was last adopted in 2013. So these plans are incorporated into the update. And moving forward with updating the comprehensive plan, the township will only update the comprehensive plan every 5 years. These will be incorporated and referenced into the township comprehensive plan. We may look at these areas in more specific detail if something changes in those areas, or something that wasn't anticipated, but they are now incorporated into this planning update. And I'll just briefly walk you through the plan. Because it has been modified, the format was modified from the last plan in 2011, and we really tried to make an effort to put the plan on a Word diet, use more graphics. The text is more in a bullet format, more succinct, and hopefully easier to read and easier to understand. On page 4 of the plan, there is a good description of the process that was laid out for updating this plan. A steering team, as in the past, was appointed by the trustees, and this steering team started in January, or was appointed in January. And I guess to back up from that, the trustees hired Planning Next, a consulting firm, to help us with this process. McBride Dale Clarion was also a sub-consultant of Planning Next that helped with the layout of the plan and the mapping exercises. And then a third consultant was also used to help perform a market analysis. This was DeSalvo Development Advisors, and I will go over the market analysis in a little bit. But you can see the steering team was formed. We had our large planning public meeting, which was called What's Next? And there's a little bit of feedback there. Let's see if I can fix that. So in June we had a public meeting. It was called our What's Next meeting. We had over 130 attendees at the meeting, which was one of the largest crowds we've ever had for a planning study. We had also prepared a website. It was called Anderson Tomorrow that was available. It was a link through our website, but it was also a separate URL where the public could follow through with the process. There was also a survey gathering additional feedback that was placed on that website, and we received over 287 online responses. The Appendix A is a summary of the public input, and that will become a part of the comprehensive plan. But it's a lot to read, but you can see the great ideas that were gathered from the public in that appendix. The steering team met 4 times over this period, and then October we had a second open house to review the draft plan. At this time, too, the draft plan was made available for review on our website, and it was up on our website until October the 31st. Once October 31st came around, we did take it off of the website just so that the comments could be incorporated into the final draft that's before you tonight, which is considered the adoption draft. So again, the overall goals for this update was, again, it wasn't a complete rewrite and complete overhaul. It was an update looking at what had changed since 2011. Again, just to refresh the applicable data and mapping and note any significant changes, and then also just make this plan a little bit more user-friendly than the previous. A market analysis was conducted, and this market analysis was for a couple of reasons. One, we had 3 key sites in the township that we felt were underdeveloped and needed a closer look to see if changes needed to be made on our future land use map. So the market analysis was first to look at the market of the township as a whole, and then to apply some of the uses that were missing in that market to see what would be desirable for those specific key sites, to see if the future land use map needed to be changed. And only one site in the township is proposed to be changed in our future land use map, and that is the area of the Skytop Shopping Center, which is at Beachmont and Elston. In the 2011 future land use map, the site was identified for 2 different uses. One was general retail, which you can see on the map in front of you is in red, and then there was a small orange piece that was transitional residence. And our market analysis recommended that this property across the street as well, where there's a UDF, so this area here, there's a UDF and then an abandoned gas station. So that whole area, the market analysis recommended that the future land use be changed to general mixed use. So this would still allow for the same uses in the general retail zoning or classification, but the consultant and the steering team agreed that this would promote mixed use, promote different uses, uses that aren't, the current uses down there, the properties are underutilized, and this would allow and encourage uses hopefully that would be successful, a mixture of higher density residential uses, retail and office were encouraged on there. And this is the only change that is being recommended on our future land use map. The former plan in 2011, chapters were called elements, and these were just retermed chapters so that it would be very clear. These are the 7 chapters that are included in the update. Some of them were modified, and one particular chapter, sustainability in 2011, was removed as a chapter. However, the goals of that sustainability chapter were incorporated into all chapters, as it was felt that there were components of sustainability in every single chapter. So instead of singling it out as its own chapter, it was incorporated into the other chapters, and it was there's a little leaf that signifies that that was formerly in the sustainability. And as far as the plan itself, again, is organized on page 7, there is a summary of the chapters and the specific goal statements of each chapter. And then when you look at a chapter, for instance, chapter 2, and all of the chapters are organized the same, you have the overview of the topic, which in chapter 2 is transportation. You have the goals. So the goals are listed first, so you know up front what the goals of that chapter are. We did try to identify responsible parties, specifically with transportation, as there are multiple responsible parties: state roads, county roads, township streets, township sidewalks, metro, the regional network, etc. So And then there was just an overview of the issues within that topic. We also tried to list what we heard from the public during our public meetings, and then list out the future outlook and needs as well as the initiatives. And the initiatives, again, the wording of the initiatives are primarily the same, however, they were simplified. The wording was simplified to make it more clear of what the goals and the initiatives were. We did route this to all the agencies. We really only received a written response from OKI, and we did address those two items in the plan. There are two issues on page 10 was redescribe the responsibility of OKI, which we did. We took the language that they provided. That was on page 10. And then the people and housing chapter, it illustrates the need for increasing housing options, and we did add a bullet point in the description of transitional residence, and that's on page 48. So the steering team and staff recommends approval of the plan. It was kind of quick summary, but plans are somewhat hard to present. So if you have specific questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. Well, we'll start down on my left, just work our way back through.
Okay.
Go through.
I can just start anywhere, like any, I'm not gonna say a lot, but,
Sure.
I'm curious on page 11 regarding the streets. I see some talk about the Broadway anchor connector, and it looks like, I'm still a little confused about what the plan is as far as I know we've, I guess, disregarded the 32, or we've discontinued the study of the 32 connector. Is that correct? Through Newtown,
It was put on hold.
put on hold?
Yes.
Okay.
So the Broadwell connector was meant to be direct access from Broadwell Road to the industrial area, the Encore area, out to 32, regardless if a new 32 was constructed or limited access 32 was constructed. And that was one of the top priorities out of our Encore plan. So that was carried over into this plan as well, to continue the push to make that roadway happen. Transportation access was one of the limiting factors of developing the whole Encore area. And that was, again, one of the top recommendations out of the Encore plan, and we wanted to carry it over, bless you, to this plan as well.
Okay. And are we going by section, or did we decide just?
All of your questions at once, or we can circle back if you have additional ones.
Okay. And then on page 29, I was looking at the housing market, and it talks about, in the graph at the top, it talks about the market-supported housing. Do I understand it correctly that this suggests that there is a need for example, assisted living, 184 beds, and if you go down below, we currently only have 60. Is that what, am I understanding that correctly? Are we saying the market analysis is based on a review of market conditions, the following market-supported residential opportunities exist?
Yes.
Okay. And skilled nursing, so we have assisted living, independent living of 314, 196 exist, and then skilled nursing 122, but there's not really a category, there's a nursing home category of 667. But then I guess we learned there's a cap on the nursing home. I mean, there's no new nursing home beds, right?
Right, those require a certificate of need from the state. But I think in general what the market study was saying, that there is a need for age-restricted housing in the township.
Gotcha.
And I wouldn't get too hung up on the specific numbers, but I think overall the market study was really being used to say there is a need for this type of housing long-term in the township.
That's all I have for now.
Great.
Yeah, I had a few observations and questions on it. Generally speaking, I was really impressed with the plan. It's extremely difficult process, and I think Paul's to be commended to spearhead this, get an updated comprehensive plan where you bring basically the whole community together and attempt to get consensus is amazing undertaking, and so I commend the staff, Paul and his administration for accomplishing this. And I did read through the entire plan and just had a couple brief comments, and maybe Paul could shed a little light on some of my observations. But the first one is, and I think you did answer this, Paul, is we do have a lot of plans and subset plans and corridor plans and area plans in Anderson Township, and from what I understood you to say, those plans are going to remain in force and effect. We're not really going to focus on a township of changing and modifying each one of those, but those are in fact incorporated into this document. Is that correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay.
The,
That's very helpful.
one of the goals, though, is to consolidate the Beachmont Avenue plans into one plan. That was started by staff, and that after this plan hopefully is adopted, that's the next update we plan to do, is just consolidate all of the Beachmont plans into one consolidated document.
Makes sense.
But the Riverfront Plan, the Anchor Plan, and those other neighborhood business district plans are incorporated into this, and we will move those forward each time that this is adopted.
Great. I saw throughout, I didn't really go through and count it, but there's a half dozen to 10 times where agriculture is mentioned in this plan, which was surprising to me. I don't view the township necessarily as really all townships have an agricultural history, but I don't think of us that way. As Anderson Township, we have a wonderful farmers market, but not a lot of active agriculture. But then as I read on through the document, it mentioned agriculture is largely occurring within the floodplain areas, which makes a lot of sense. When I see agriculture referenced throughout the document, is that what we're talking about? Or are we thinking about, more urban agriculture activities, or what's your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think the reference is primarily, the majority of our agricultural properties are in the northern portion of the township along the Little Miami floodplain area.
Yes.
You have two very large farms in that area, the Maltz Farms and the Turpin Farms.
Yes.
And the floodplain along 32 between Newtown and Beachmont Levee, those areas are primarily the township's agricultural. Yes.
Makes sense.
It's
Those
not
are-
really encouraging urban agriculture, although that is a part of the sustainability element to a certain extent.
Interesting, but certainly those are important businesses that you referenced.
And part of the Anchor update was encouraging those types of uses in the Anchor area as well.
Well, and since you mentioned Angkor, and that's mentioned a lot in this plan as well. But the one that caught my attention is on page 52, where it says reassess land use recommendations as the Martin Marietta subsurface mine issue is resolved, and that issue is resolved.
That
So-
issue has been resolved.
So that will be a very busy enterprise down in that area. When we talk about reassessing, because that was planned in earlier plans to be really a business development area and stuff, so that will be interesting. I don't think there's an answer for it at this time because it's fairly new development, but that will be interesting. And with the Angkor connector that's to be built, I'll be really curious to see how that develops out. And I would just also comment, when you talk about sustainability, if you have a chance to, we had a chance when I was on the Board of Zoning Appeals to go take a hard look at that property. It's really beautiful. There is really undisturbed natural areas, water features in that area that are really wonderful treasure. Of course, they're largely inaccessible to the general public, but that's maybe something to think about as we now see how that area will be redeveloped with the additional business activity there. I did also see a lot of mention about the Eastern Corridor plan that's been going on for decades now, and from what I thought, it had pretty much been determined that that's not going to happen. There's been years and years of planning, and that's just what I understand. I don't have any personal knowledge of that, but where are we, do you know, Paul, where they are at with that? Because the plan reference it, again, 10 times the Eastern Corridor study, and the Oasis line and all that stuff, and I'm not sure that that's happening. And before I go on, do you know about what?
If you want to.
I sit on the Transportation Advisory Committee.
Yes.
And we get it updated every meeting. It's still alive. There's still proponents of it, but nothing's really changing at this point, but it's still, we get updates every meeting.
So it's still out there percolating around a little bit? Okay.
And they've tried different angles and breaking it up into smaller segments and mix streetcar did some things, and then light rail extending it out here, so it's alive, but.
Okay, that's good knowledge. I didn't know you're on the committee, so that's really good. And I will say, this plan talks about transportation, and the township, I think, and the planning and the people on this committee have done just such a wonderful job. I think Anderson Township is really a leader in this region of retrofitting and staying current with the community. You see the sidewalk and trails programs. That's been, in my opinion, a huge benefit and has come out of endeavors such as this land use plan. So I was really pleased to see that. And I think, if the Eastern Corridor study, light rail, doesn't come to fruition, this, the bus emphasis that the township had the foresight to do with our station, it's a real, I think, tribute to the planners and the leaders in the community that has occurred, and I was so pleased to see that this section was in the land use plan. And then just a couple, going on a little bit longer than I wanted to, but I did really appreciate the comments about property maintenance. I do think as the community ages, that's important. When I was on the BZA, we saw a little bit of that, and we have wonderful neighborhoods here, and it's really great to have that community statement that we appreciate the neighborhoods and we appreciate the value people put into houses, and we see that reflected in our property maintenance code. I saw comments that there was a desire for more shopping. Here we are evolving. I mean, just drive up the hill there. Mm-hmm. That is really amazing how our new shopping center is taking place. I'm so excited about that. So, I really love these plans when you can start checking off accomplishments, and maybe that's one of them there. I did see, we've had experience on this board, at least you're getting feedback. I was a little bit conflicted because I see feedback on things like the planning for new and smaller homes, more multifamily units and stuff. And this committee, this board here, is really where that planning the rubber hits the road with this board, and we've seen it a couple times. So it's, I do think there's room for that in the community, but the question is where? Because it's really difficult, as we've seen sometimes, to have that happen. One personal thing is talks about utilities. Certainly this isn't a township thing, but it talks about there's no need to upgrade the power system. I know for a fact there is, at least where I live, there is a need for it. If you're in the southern sort of region around where 275 goes through the township, right in our neighborhood is a dividing line, and it's very common for our power to go out, and it affects the whole southern part of the township. I do my share to complain to Duke, but there is some attention that needs to be paid so we have a good and regular power supply. That's been my experience. And you mentioned already where the map changes were occurring. That was really helpful to me. And the last thing is I saw mention of a potentially a community center, and there wasn't a lot of meat on the bones of what they were talking about there. My observation is in Anderson Township, we have community centers like this facility, which really is a wonderful city center, gives us a focal point, and we have a lot of activities here. The sense I got from the planning remarks was more of perhaps recreation, and it referenced the YMCA and that sort of thing. And I think that's a good idea, but where I think the township has maybe already accomplished that is we have the YMCA. There's at least, without trying very hard, I can think of three really popular summertime swim and tennis clubs that those who want to participate and fund that kind of thing, you can, as opposed to a community-wide one where, you know, those can be really expensive. So I'm not quite sure what the planners were thinking in that regard. I think we have some really strong points, though, today. So that's it. Thank you. I really enjoyed reading it and
Good.
appreciated all your work.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
As someone who had the opportunity and honor to be on the steering committee, the one thing I would like to thank Paul and your entire staff is it was extremely well run. I think everybody who sat there felt as though our input was looked at, and everyone who came to the community meeting, the what's next, people felt very positive walking out. We had a great output or outcome. Great number of people came out, and it was just a good experience overall. I love how this finished up, and it was. I think it generally it's very clear. You know, it gives us more room to move forward with, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you all. We did. We had a great steering team. They were very dedicated, very responsive. They read the materials. The first two meetings, their primary role was to go out to their constituents and make sure that it was known that the planning process was going on, and to make sure, try to bring as many people back to give us feedback. And they did a great job, obviously, because of the number of people that came. But we had, wasn't staff, it was a steering team, and that really
Great.
brought it forward.
Okay, I have some comments, and you can incorporate them, or just say thank you, but no. First, real section, transportation. I'd like to see some metrics in there, sort of like traffic study. When we talk about the township, and we constantly bring up about Beachmont Avenue and different things, it'd be interesting, especially maybe on the next plan, to see the traffic count or the accident count for what's happening at 5 Mile with the continuous flow. Because I know that's been in the plan for a long time, and it's finally coming to fruition, so.
And that's something we could definitely throw into our Beachmont plan when we consolidate that as well.
Nothing on economic health. People in housing on page 29. I just had a note that under the senior housing, I think maybe we answered the question, those were beds when it talks about the housing in the first table. They weren't identified as beds, but down below they are. And there's also an asterisk under assisted living. What does that denote?
I don't know offhand. I'd
Okay.
have to look in the market analysis and
It's
see
just
if
a-
it's in there.
I didn't see where it was.
But that's a good point. We need to reference that.
Okay. And also, when in the appendix, which I read after this, the appendix B, there's some good data in there. You might want to pull some of that in there, the demographics of the people. You've talked about some things, but I think there's other things that you could pull in, especially about race and ethnicity. So. Quality of life. Again, just wonder if we could add some data points. Since I know the data is out there, you go from 2003 all the way up to 2016. And if we do this plan every 5 years, it'd be nice to see where the trends are going. Especially, and also, I know the schools probably also have projections 5 years out. So when you're looking at strategic long-range plans and things of that sort, it's a good measure to see how you planned, to see what actually happened. Also, in the quality of life, on page 36, I just know that there's an opportunity with the Anderson Township Parks. There's a camping area called Steamboat Bend, and I think they have 52. You can rent them by the week, the month, or the season, which runs from April to November for camping, RVs and such. It's a nice amenity for Anderson Township. It's run through the Hamilton County Parks. And there's no mention of the park levy. I think you brought up the school levy in that section, but the park levy, wasn't that just extended this year?
I think in November, yeah, the
Yeah.
timing. We had referenced the school levy because
a
of
year
all of the
ago.
upgrades to the schools, the elementary schools. So it was to draw the connection of, in 2011, I think there was a reference that the school facilities really needed
Right.
upgrading. So we wanted to bring this plan up to speed that the levy was passed and the schools are being upgraded, but we can throw the park one in, because that,
Yeah, if it's a historical document, we want to
okay.
note that. Under 6, the land use and development on page 51, and I can't recall, did we zone for hospitality across from Coney Island and Riverbend and Belterra? Isn't that a plan
Yeah.
for a hotel?
Are you talking about the future land use
Yeah,
designation?
Yeah, under 51, we list fast food, gasoline, convenience, but I thought we also had zoned that for a hotel possibly, when that empty lot.
I think there was a plan that came before you and then was later withdrawn.
Okay.
Because the zoning didn't change.
Okay,
A portion of that property is zoned E, which retail, which would allow for hospitality use.
The entertainment,
A
yeah.
portion of it is still zoned for single family.
okay.
I think the land use, future land use identified it as scenic river commercial possibly. Let me look.
You can check on it, I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's, if you're going to call out in a bulletized manner, I would just add hotels.
A portion of that's entertainment commercial in the future land use map. You also include hospitality. So I think it's designated appropriately,
Okay,
but the zoning has not changed.
okay,
There is a portion that's still identified for single family. That's more that Kentucky View neighborhood.
is that up on the hill above it?
Mhm, that's on for the,
Okay. All right, in Chapter 7, the natural and environmental resources, there's no mention of our township recycling efforts in the recycling center. I think that's I know they've gotten some awards and different things, so just a mention of that. And then we had talked about offline about, in Section 8, Public Services, about the southern portion being more defined about where there's not natural gas availability. That may have changed since the 2011 plan. And then maybe in the future, if you can't do it this time, but I would add a section under this for broadband, Wi-Fi, fiber optics, sort of a technology label, because that's becoming more important for every community. In page 70, I would delete the Development Advisory Committee. That no longer
no.
exists. In page 71, is it possible to get a definition of between short-term and medium-term? What that is? That a 1 to 2 year, 3 to 5?
Yes, we
Type
can
time
define
frame?
that, yes.
Eliminate a little bit of the vagueness, what the goal state is. But in general, I mean, when I read through this, again, I had some experience with strategic long-range plans. It's a great plan. What I'd like to see maybe going forward is capturing what has changed in the 5 years. So what, like the Kroger and the theater and the different things, what new things have come into the township? What has changed since we looked at it? Maybe call those out. Again, the successes of the township and how we've managed to the plan.
We did present, it was more of a PowerPoint to the steering team when we started this process, and we had a brief version of that also that was presented at the What's Next meeting. So we
Okay.
do have that.
Maybe as an
And,
appendix or
we
something
use
to this,
that
because I
at the
think
beginning of the
it's good
process.
news.
Mhm.
So, okay. At this time, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Okay.
These are co-ops.
They can still speak.
Sarah and Nathan.
Okay, well, thanks for attending. Any other questions for staff? Okay, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion.
Make the motion
Okay,
to approve the 2016 comprehensive plan as presented. If you want to add, anybody wants to add some language to that.
I don't. I'm okay with it as is. I thought some of your suggestions were very
yeah,
good.
I would say to approve it and incorporate any of our suggestions that, again, materially, it doesn't affect the plan, but if you want to take any of our suggestions. Sure.
Yeah,
you know,
I like that.
But as is, it's fine if you want the suggestions, you know, either or.
Okay.
So,
So I'll second that as presented.
is that firm enough?
Good with that.
Okay, a second? Roll call, please.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Mr. Eliff?
Aye.
Ms. DiBiagio?
Aye.
And Mr. Lewis?
Aye. Well, with that, Paul, do we have a January?
I think we will most likely review the final development plan for Forest Hills Care Center.
Okay,
They haven't submitted yet, but that would be the only thing that I'm expecting so far.
Okay.
So we should have a meeting.
great. All right, need a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Boone?
Aye.
Mr. Eliff?
Aye.
Ms. DiBiagio?
Aye.
And Mr. Lewis?
Aye. Everyone have a good holiday season.